My name is Natalia Hernandez, and I'm 28 years old. If you ask anyone who knows me, they'd probably say I'm the kind of woman who keeps her life wired neatly, literally and figuratively. By day, I'm a commercial electrician in Seattle. Not the flashy, fix-your-outlets kind. I spend my weeks inside skeletal high-rises and industrial complexes, turning blueprints into living grids of power. The hours are brutal, the climbs are high, and the paychecks are satisfying. I bought my own condo 2 years ago, 2 bedrooms, a balcony, overlooking the Ship Canal, and furniture that's a mix of IKEA and finds from estate sales where old families sell pieces with stories. Every socket, hinge, and shelf in my place serves a purpose. My dad drilled that into me growing up. A woman should own her space, not decorate for other people's approval. Most nights, I sit on my balcony with a cold drink, watching boats drift along the water. No roommates, no borrowed space, no emotional clutter. If I'm honest, I used to think I'd built myself a peaceful little island, a fortress with dimmable lighting. Of course, that was before everything got messy, before Jordan Blake walked into my life and rewired more things than he fixed. The meeting. I met Jordan at a networking mixer for young professionals, a thing I'd normally avoid unless my boss was breathing down my neck about client relationship building. They held it at some glossy downtown venue where the hors d'oeuvres were overpriced and underseasoned. I was staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows, contemplating my escape route, when a voice beside me said, "Every time someone mentions blockchain at one of these events, an angel loses its wings." I turned and found a man with neatly styled dark hair, sharp suit, and the kind of polished confidence that suggested he'd practiced his smile in reflective surfaces. Jordan Blake, 30, digital marketing consultant. Charming, articulate, and the type who made eye contact like he was analyzing your data points. We talked, and he was, annoyingly, good at conversation. Smooth, clever, attractive in a curated way. Before the night ended, he had my number, and I had a text from him waiting before I even got home. For 3 weeks, we slipped into a routine. Coffee runs, trendy dinners, late-night talks about his career ambitions. I didn't notice at first how the conversations tilted toward him, his goals, his clients, his curated struggles, but I was enjoying the company and not overthinking it. Then things accelerated physically. After our 4th date, he came back to my condo. The chemistry was real, electric even. We ended up tangled in my sheets on a Thursday night, basking in the comfortable haze of 2 people who think they're heading somewhere. That night was when everything shifted. The talk. We were lying in bed after round 2, my head still foggy with warmth and that soft post-intimacy feeling where the world seems quiet and hopeful. I was considering asking if he wanted breakfast before my 7 a.m. site inspection the next morning. Then Jordan rolled onto his side with a look I recognized instantly, a too carefully arranged expression, a script waiting to begin. "So," he said, "I've been thinking." Those 4 words could kill any mood. "I really like what we have," he continued, "but I'm not looking for anything serious right now." My brain snapped from relaxed softness to full alert. "Okay," I said slowly. "What are you looking for?" "A casual thing. Friends with benefits. We have chemistry. We enjoy spending time together. But a relationship? That's too much emotional bandwidth while I'm focused on my career." His delivery was smooth, rehearsed, probably practiced on a past girlfriend or 2. Eye contact steady, voice warm but firm. It felt like a PowerPoint pitch with bullet points he'd memorized. "So," I clarified, "you want to keep sleeping together, but not date?" "Exactly. No labels, no pressure. We're adults. We can manage this without getting emotionally tangled." I looked at him for a long moment. Part of me had been imagining what a relationship might look like, introducing him to my dad, bringing him to the company barbecue, maybe planning a trip together. But my father raised me with one non-negotiable rule: never beg someone to want you. So I swallowed the sting, nodded, and said, "All right, if that's what you want, we can do that." Jordan lit up like he'd just won something. "You're amazing," he said, kissing me. "Most women get emotional about this stuff, but you're so mature." He didn't realize yet that I took his words exactly as he delivered them. No commitment meant no expectations on either side. He had drawn the lines. I was simply agreeing to play inside them. The shift. For the next month, our arrangement went exactly as he designed it. Text when convenient, meet when schedules aligned, hook up, maybe eat afterward, then part ways. No plans, no promises. And a switch flipped inside me. When someone tells you you're good enough for their bed but not their heart, something in your mind restructures itself. The emotional light bulbs dim, the wiring reroutes. I stopped imagining Jordan as anything more than what he wanted to be, a convenience. No more thoughtful questions about his day. No more suggesting date-like activities. No more investing in a future he deliberately removed from the table. He didn't notice, or didn't care. Everything stayed shallow, exactly as he preferred. The roommate. Then I met Rachel. Jordan shared a spacious two-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill with her. The first few times I visited, she wasn't around. But one Saturday, Jordan asked if I could swing by to help move a heavy bookshelf. He was running late, naturally, so Rachel opened the door. And she was nothing like Jordan. Athletic, sweat damp from a run, hair tied back, no makeup, real. "Hey," she said with a bright smile. "You must be the furniture hero Jordan claimed he summoned." I snorted. "Professional bookshelf wrangler, licensed in IKEA and emotional support shelving." She laughed, genuinely, not the curated kind Jordan performed. During the 20 minutes before he returned, we talked in the kitchen. Rachel was a physical therapist working in sports medicine downtown. Intelligent, grounded, deeply present. She listened when I spoke and responded thoughtfully. Not a single moment felt performative. By the time Jordan finally showed up, with a candle he apparently felt a deep spiritual need to purchase, Rachel and I were mid-conversation about building codes and soil stability. Jordan looked lightly annoyed. I didn't think much of it. But that small moment set off a domino effect I didn't recognize yet. Foreshadowing. Over the following weeks, I'd run into Rachel more often. She was kind, considerate, and sharp. But more importantly, she was observant. I caught her watching Jordan sometimes with a look that wasn't judgment, but recognition, like she'd seen this pattern before. "Jordan's complicated," she said one evening casually. "He likes low responsibility relationships. It's been a theme." A quiet chill ran under my skin. Because part of me already knew, and another part of me was starting to feel a shift in the air, something subtle but unmistakable, like the faint smell of a storm long before the clouds gather. I didn't know it yet, but Jordan's carefully built boundaries were about to snap, and everything would begin with one simple introduction Rachel hadn't made yet. Someone who would change everything. Evan Mercer. But that's part of what comes next. If someone had asked me then whether my life was about to tilt off its axis, I would have laughed. Nothing in my world felt dramatic. My work was steady, my condo was peaceful, and my arrangement with Jordan was, well, tolerable. But life has a way of slipping in quiet changes, small moments that feel harmless, until you look back and realize they rewired everything. For me, that moment was a Wednesday evening at Jordan's apartment. A shift in the air. Jordan was running late again. Last-minute client emergency, the kind he somehow had 3 times a week. So I sat on the couch waiting, scrolling through my phone. The apartment was unusually quiet until the front door swung open and Rachel walked in, hair wind-tousled, cheeks pink from cold air. "Oh, hey," she said, smiling when she saw me. "Jordan texted saying he'd be late again?" "Of course he did." She snorted in agreement and dropped her gym bag by the door. "He says career focus like it's a medical condition." I laughed. Rachel always had a way of making light of the things that Jordan treated like heavy burdens. She grabbed 2 bottles of water from the fridge and tossed one to me before sitting on the armchair across from the couch. "Mind if I hang out? I need to stretch before I cramp somewhere stupid." "Go for it." She slipped into a stretching routine, clean, controlled movements, and talked effortlessly. "So how's work? You still rewiring that nightmare 1960s building?" "Unfortunately, I think I aged 10 years chasing faulty circuits behind walls older than my dad." She grinned. "Hey, at least it's job security. Old buildings are like patients who swear they're fine until everything collapses at once." "How very reassuring of you." She shrugged. "Physical therapy. Half the job is telling people their bodies are not, in fact, immortal." We talked the way 2 people do, when neither is trying too hard. Easy, natural, grounded. And that was the moment the apartment door opened again. But it wasn't Jordan. The introduction. A tall man stepped in. Brown hair, soft beard, shoulders broad enough to suggest he lifted things heavier than Jordan's curated candle collection. He froze when he saw me sitting on the couch. "Oh, sorry, didn't know we had company." Rachel's face lit up. "Natalia, this is Evan Mercer, my friend from the clinic. Evan, this is Natalia, Jordan's..." She paused, searching for a word that wouldn't ignite a landmine. I spared her. "Friend." Evan smiled. "Nice to meet you." He had one of those smiles, warm, steady, not manufactured, the kind that made you feel he wasn't performing for anyone. And his eyes flicked briefly to Rachel, amused. Jordan late again? Rachel groaned. He's late to his own excuses. They exchanged a look that told me they talked about Jordan often. I just didn't know what they said. Evan hung his jacket on a hook and grabbed a sparkling water from the fridge before leaning against the counter. So, he said, you're the electrician with the old building horror stories? I raised a brow. Is Rachel out here telling tales about my professional trauma? Only the entertaining ones. We all laughed. It felt normal, comfortable. Too comfortable. Something inside me noted that, subtly, quietly, like a dim light switching on in the background. The hour that changed everything. Jordan texted 15 minutes later, claiming he'd be another 30 minimum. Rachel rolled her eyes so hard I thought she'd sprained something. You're welcome to stay, she said. Or you can leave a note taped to his laptop telling him you've died of boredom. I'll wait, I said. He promised dinner. Dinner? Rachel frowned. As in, actual food at an actual time? Apparently. Wow, that must have taken emotional bandwidth. I snorted. Be nice. I'm being realistic. Evan laughed, sitting across from me. Jordan's not a bad guy. He just specializes in emotional minimalism. That phrasing was accurate. We talked for a while about work, hobbies, hiking spots, Seattle's rising rent, the satisfaction of fixing things with your hands. Evan spoke like someone who thought before he talked. He didn't fill silence for the sake of it. He didn't try to impress me. He didn't talk at people. He talked to them. It was disarming. At some point, Rachel headed to shower, leaving me and Evan alone. That's when it happened. That tiny spark of recognition, the kind that whispers rather than shouts. Evan leaned back slightly, studying me in a way that wasn't invasive, just curious. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. What exactly is your situation with Jordan? My breath hitched, not because the question shocked me, but because no one had ever asked it so plainly. It's casual, I said. He wanted it that way. And you? I hesitated. Evan didn't push, he just waited, patient. I accepted it, I said finally. I'm not chasing something he told me he doesn't want. He nodded slowly, like he understood more than I said out loud. That's fair, he said. But I've seen Jordan's patterns. He's allergic to commitment, but he also gets weird when someone else shows interest in the person he's not committing to. That sounds contradictory. Jordan is contradictory. We shared a knowing glance, a soft, unspoken understanding. A moment that felt like someone had quietly flipped a breaker in a dark room. The look. Rachel returned, wearing fresh clothes, hair damp. Jordan still not here? She asked. Shockingly no, Evan said. She rolled her eyes. He's going to walk in and act surprised like the meeting ran long because the universe conspired against him. Evan leaned close to her, murmuring something jokingly, and Rachel shoved his shoulder with a grin. They were so natural together, so familiar, and yet Evan's eyes slid back to me every so often. Not flirtatious, not inappropriate, but observant, like he was piecing together a puzzle. The first thread. Jordan finally arrived, flustered and apologizing in that charming but empty way he did when he wanted to smooth over his own inconsistency. He greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, barely acknowledging Rachel or Evan. Then he tugged me toward the door. Ready? He asked. Sure. But as we walked out, I felt that shift again, the quiet hum of something beginning. I didn't have a name for it yet, but a part of me sensed it wasn't Jordan whose presence would matter in the weeks to come. It was Evan, and the universe wasn't subtle about it. The foreshadowing. The following week, Rachel invited me to join her and some friends for a weekend volunteer event at a community sports clinic. Jordan declined, too busy for unpaid labor. But I found myself curious. When Rachel introduced me to the group that Saturday morning, Evan was there, and he smiled at me like he'd been expecting it. Like he'd recognized the moment before I did. That was the crack in Jordan's arrangement. Not a dramatic explosion, just a quiet shift. A new light in a room I hadn't stepped into yet. If someone had told me that a single weekend could tilt the entire emotional balance of my life, I wouldn't have believed them. But that Saturday at the community sports clinic, where Rachel had roped me into volunteering, and where Evan seemed genuinely happy to see me, was the beginning of everything that would unravel. Because unlike Jordan, who floated through his relationships like a tourist afraid to unpack his suitcase, Evan showed up with both feet firmly on the ground. And I felt the difference instantly. The day everything became clear. The clinic was buzzing with injured high school athletes, anxious parents, and volunteer therapists. Evan moved through the room with an ease that looked practiced, not because he wanted to impress anyone, but because he knew what he was doing. Here, he said softly, handing me a clipboard. I'll show you how we check in the patients. He leaned close to point out the form, and I noticed the faint scent of pine from his aftershave. Grounded. Clean. Nothing like Jordan's expensive but performative cologne that always screamed, "Notice me." We spent the day working side by side, talking, laughing, sharing stories. At one point, Evan caught a falling box before it hit my foot, steadying it with a quick reflex and a quick smile. "Careful," he murmured. "I kind of like your toes where they are." It was a harmless joke, but my chest warmed anyway. By the end of the shift, my cheeks hurt from smiling. Jordan had never made me feel like that. Not once. And the truth settled in quietly but unmistakably. I liked Evan, and Jordan wasn't the man I wanted. He was just the man who happened to arrive first. The invitation. We were packing up equipment when Evan asked, "You doing anything Thursday night?" I turned, eyebrows raised. "Depends on what you're planning." He chuckled. "Dinner. A real one. Not Jordan ordered takeout then forgot to eat at dinner." I bit back a grin. "Are you asking me out?" "That depends," he said, voice warm. "Are you saying yes?" Rachel, who had been pretending not to eavesdrop, chimed in. "She's saying yes." I elbowed her gently. "I can speak for myself." Evan just waited, patient and steady. "Yes," I said, "I'd like that." And just like that, a line was crossed. Not dramatically, not impulsively, but with clarity. The kind of clarity that Jordan never gave me. The conversation I owed him. The next day I texted Jordan and asked if we could meet for coffee. He responded with dramatic worry. "Is everything okay? Did I do something?" As though he hadn't spent months reminding me we weren't a real couple. When he arrived at the cafe, his expression was tight. "You sounded serious," he said, sitting across from me. "It's nothing dramatic," I replied. "I just wanted to check in. You said from the start you wanted something casual, no commitment." He nodded slowly. "That still stand?" I asked. "Yes," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Good, then we're aligned." He looked confused. "Why clarify that now?" "Because I'm going to see someone who wants an actual relationship." His mouth fell open. "You're seeing someone?" "Going on a date," I corrected. A long silence stretched between us, like an exposed wire sparking on the floor. Jordan forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, good for you then, I guess." But underneath that forced calm was a storm brewing. He just didn't know how to name it. The first real date. Thursday night arrived crisp and cool. Evan picked me up from my condo, and unlike Jordan, who always texted "here" from his car, Evan walked to my door and knocked. He wore a button-down shirt, sleeves rolled casually, and he brought flowers. Not roses, not something dramatic or cliché, just a simple, thoughtful bouquet. "You ready?" he asked, smiling softly. "For this? Yes," I said, feeling lighter than I had in months. Dinner was slow, warm, full of meaningful questions. He asked about my family, my dreams, the projects I wanted to lead at work. He didn't interrupt, didn't dominate the conversation. He listened the way Jordan never had. The eye contact was genuine, the laughter unforced, the spark real. Walking me to my door afterward, Evan paused. "Natalia," he said gently, "I don't want to rush anything, but I want to make it clear that I'm interested in something real, if you are." I met his eyes. "I am." He smiled, relieved. "Can I kiss you?" Jordan never asked. Jordan assumed. But Evan waited for my consent like it mattered. "Yes," I whispered. And when he kissed me, it was nothing like Jordan. No rush, no performance, no underlying calculation. Just warmth, sincerity, and quiet chemistry. Something that felt like the beginning of a story, not a footnote. The explosion. 3 days later, everything detonated. I arrived at Jordan's apartment to pick up a jacket I'd left there. Rachel let me in, and we ended up talking on the couch, laughing over a story from the clinic. Evan was there too, scribbling notes on a clipboard. We were sitting a little close enough to hint something had shifted. That was the moment Jordan walked in. The door shut behind him with a sharp thud. His eyes darted from me to Evan to the space between us, and I watched the realization hit him like a slap. "What?" he said, voice breaking at the edges. "Is this?" Rachel's face hardened. Her. I stood calmly. "I'm seeing Evan. We went on a date." His chest rose sharply. "With my roommate's friend?" "You said no commitment," I reminded him. "Your terms. Your rules." "Well, maybe I changed my mind," he shouted. Rachel stepped forward. "You don't get to suddenly change the rules because you're jealous." Jordan turned on her. "Stay out of this." "No," she said firmly. "Natalia's allowed to want more than scraps." Jordan's face twisted. "This is real." His voice cracked. "With him? With someone who actually shows up." The room went still. Then Jordan grabbed his keys, stormed out, and the door slammed hard enough to shake the picture frames. Aftermath. Rachel sighed, rubbing her temples. He's going to spiral. He's done this every time a woman chooses someone who treats her better. Evan stepped beside me. Are you okay? I took a long breath. I'm better than okay, I said quietly. For the first time, I feel like I'm not the one being managed. I'm the one choosing. Evan's eyes softened, and something in me knew. This wasn't the messy part. The messy part was still coming. For a few days after Jordan's explosion, the world felt strangely quiet, like the breathless pause after lightning, right before the thunder catches up. I wasn't afraid of Jordan, but I knew men like him, the ones who claimed indifference until the moment someone else valued what they took for granted. Jealousy wasn't new to Jordan, but jealousy with no control, that was something he had no script prepared for. Still, Evan didn't pull away. If anything, he stepped closer, carefully, respectfully, steady in a way that felt like solid ground after months of balancing on emotional scaffolding. The movie out tension. Over the next week, Jordan avoided both Rachel and me. Whenever I came by to retrieve anything I'd left at the apartment, the air was thick with slammed cabinet doors and muttered curses. Rachel handled it with practiced calm. He'll burn himself out, she said one evening as I collected my tools from the hallway closet. Jordan never learned emotional endurance, only emotional theatrics. She paused, then added quietly, and for what it's worth, I'm glad you chose someone who treats you right. Me too, I said, and I meant it. But Jordan wasn't done. The last talk. On a rainy Thursday evening, he finally confronted me. I had come by to grab the last thing I'd left at his place, a sweatshirt. Jordan met me at the door, blocking the entrance with his arm. You're really done with me, he said, voice low. I met his eyes. We were never a relationship to end. You wanted something casual. I respected that. But you replaced me with him. I swallowed a sigh. No, I replaced a non-relationship with a real one. His face shifted, anger, hurt, disbelief, all tangled together. You know, he said, laughing bitterly, I thought you were different. I thought you were the cool one, the one who didn't get emotional. It's not emotional to want to be treated with respect, Jordan. He flinched. You should have told me you wanted more. I shook my head. You should have asked. For a moment, he looked almost small, not the polished, witty Jordan who strutted into the networking mixer like the room was a stage. Just a man who had pushed away something before realizing he wanted it. But clarity came with a cost. Goodbye, Jordan. He didn't stop me this time. He just watched me walk away, quiet, stunned, realizing too late that his own rules had betrayed him. Becoming unavoidable. With Jordan behind me, my relationship with Evan unfolded naturally. No games, no overthinking, no emotional penalties for honesty. Weeks passed, then months. Evan and I cooked dinner together, spent slow Sunday mornings on my balcony, hiked trails where he pointed out constellations at dusk, talked about dreams without fear of scaring each other off. He made things easy. He made me feel chosen. And Jordan? He spiraled. The pattern collapses. Rachel updated me occasionally, always with that tone of someone who had predicted the plot twist long before it happened. Jordan tried another casual thing, she said one night over dinner. Same routine, same speech, same crash when she started seeing someone else. Again? 3 times. I wasn't smug about it. I wasn't even relieved. Mostly I felt sad for him. Because Jordan wasn't malicious, just terrified. Terrified of vulnerability. Terrified of commitment. Terrified of being seen and not measuring up. He wanted proximity without responsibility. Attention without investment. A warm body without the risk of a warm heart. Life doesn't reward that kind of emotional dieting. The hardware store encounter. 8 months into my relationship with Evan, we found ourselves at a hardware store on a lazy Saturday. We were selecting paint colors for my living room, Evan debating whether Cool Fog or Slate Whisper sounded more like a real color, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Natalia? I turned. Jordan. And he looked different. Not bad, just dimmed. Softer around the edges. His perfectly styled hair was a little disheveled. His confidence, once ironclad, seemed worn at the seams. A woman stood beside him, distracted by samples of tile. He introduced her only vaguely. This is, someone I've been seeing. She waved politely without really looking up. I nodded with a small smile. Good to confident, stood beside me with his hand lightly at my back. You guys look... Jordan's throat tightened. Happy. We are, I said softly. A moment passed. I was wrong, you know, he murmured. About what I wanted. About all of it. I kept thinking casual made me free, but it just made me lonely. The admission didn't feel like manipulation. It felt like truth. Rachel had been right. Jordan didn't have experience confronting himself, only others. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said sincerely. He nodded. Trying, one step at a time, I guess. We exchanged a final small smile before he walked away, rejoining the woman by the tile samples. Evan squeezed my hand as Jordan disappeared down the aisle. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said, and to my surprise, I meant it. I think he is too, or at least, he's finally trying. Evan kissed my forehead gently. Some lessons take longer. I smiled. Some are worth the wait. He wrapped an arm around me, and we continued debating paint colors, though, for the record, Slate Whisper still didn't sound real. Epilogue. The truth of it all. Jordan wanted the warmth of a relationship without the vulnerability. He wanted partners who behaved like girlfriends from his half-built blueprint and stepped into something whole. Admit aloud. You can't demand loyalty from people you refuse to claim. You can't resent others for wanting the love you deny them. And you don't get to keep what you treat as replaceable. In the end, revenge wasn't some dramatic explosion. It was quieter. It was me choosing better. It was Evan choosing me. It was Jordan realizing that casual wasn't freedom. It was fear. And sometimes,